Hello, good morning. It's my pleasure to introduce you to the architect Asmita Sigdel from Nepal, who is going to speak about traditional earthen architecture in Nepal and the relationship with the community, as well as her work with the Abari Foundation in Nepal, building new architecture, reinterpreting the earthen architecture, the traditional earthen architecture of Nepal. Thank you.
Hello and namaste. Firstly, I'd like to thank everyone who made it possible for me to be here today. My name is Asmita and I am an architect. I've been working with sustainable approach of building construction using local materials and techniques. Since last 7 years, I'm associated with an organization named Abari. Abari is a socially and environmentally committed design and research group which basically works with natural materials like adobe and bamboo. Here at Abari, we work to create a holistic chain of ecosystem that helps to support local tradition and craftsmanship. And besides this, I also do some independent research on my own on the building typology, settlements, and social cultural relation and dynamics of these place and people in context of our country. So presenting you here today is an expert from these observations and just a little glimpse into the indigenous building system of our country. So let's get started. I'm starting this image here. This is an example of a typical village setting on the outskirts of Kathmandu Valley. Growing up, this setting was my first understanding of what a house or village or a community would look like. Just at a glance, we can see that this house have a very uniform texture and building format. They are generally made of adobe bricks that's also load bearing, bonded by mud mortar, which is a very simple but sturdy binder. The walls are about 450 centimeter thick, which acts as a thermal mass. The orientation is generally always face south. The timber beam and post transfers the loads to the wall. The roof is generally sloped to drain the heavy monsoon rain, which is which is uh, uh, which is supported by struts. The overhang is supported by the struts. The overhang is necessary because this area have a very harsh monsoon, and we do not want the moisture on the adobe walls. Uh, so this the beauty of this village, the traditional villages in our context is like it's a communal building. Like when you have to build a building, the whole village would come gather together to help build one. Like you never needed a special construction team for it. You needed also one or two to guide you, but like it's a community thing. So entire community was involved in the operation of the building. They normally did this when it was like winter and they didn't have much works in the field. This, um, um, uh, what we have here is a similar building typology, but the difference is only on the visual front. This is because of the use of plaster to cover the adobe brick wall. In Kathmandu Valley, we have very variety of clay that's available, and so people use according to their preference. The black soil or the kalumato is it has a high rate of swelling and shrinkage when exposed to moisture. So they stabilize it using rice husk and straw bales. We generally make adobe bricks from this. So the house in the center is made from the black soil. We can see there's like no plaster here, and it's also made of adobe brick. So uh, this will have a very harsh weathering due to the climatic condition. But this type of house is generally not used by people. They are reserved for the shades and cattle. And the reddish residual soil ratamatu, it has a high amount of iron oxide, which is used as a plaster. And a white clay called kamirumato that you can see on the left is it's also used for the finish. We add a salt to the material to prevent it from sticking. And the plaster is generally important because, like I mentioned before, we have a very heavy monsoon rain, and many building it provide it when you have an extra layer of plaster, even if it's like earth plaster, it protects the brick that's a structural element of the building. Um, so I just showed you some image of the village in Kathmandu Valley, but like where is Kathmandu? This is just to give you the introduction of where we are situated. Nepal is landlocked country situated between India and China in Southeast Asia. Uh, so the thing about our country is like we lie on the border between Eurasian and Indian tectonic plates, which means these two plates are pushing each other and it's moving every year. So these forces are the result of the high mountains that we have in the valley, like we have in the country, but also the reason for the frequent earthquakes. So all the buildings that we have generally we always build with the mind that we have to make earthquake resilient building. So like right now I'm talking just about the Kathmandu Valley. So if you look at the Kathmandu Valley, uh, if you go to the origin of it, it was believed that it was a huge lake surrounded by the mountains on all sides and around, and the water was drained out for some cultural and religious purpose by some priest according to the legend, and thus like we have a civilized like a beautiful valley that's very good for habitation, agriculture, farming, basically a flourish of civilization. So since it was a lake, the bottom of a lake will generally have a very good fertile soil. So this is the reason why even like today, Kathmandu has the very best quality of clay to make brick. And most of the materials like that unifies the architecture with this in the main material that unifies the architecture of Kathmandu Valley is this clay that's found on the bottom of the sediment. And also like the study shows like it has a very good presence of sand and clay that's very uh, good for making bricks or for clay or just a adobe structure in general. Yeah, this is just like saying the same things. The test of the clay property in the Kathmandu Valley say like we have uh, the expanse of clay particles that falls within acceptable limits, and the sand particles also falls within like building acceptable limit. An overall test and demonstrates good potential of earth as the building like viable building materials. Um, and also like we have various colors of clays that are used in different building forms. Like gray clays are used to make mortar, and red clay is made for pavements and also for the plasters. White clay again for the paintings and plasters. Yellow clay are used for making joints. And in addition to this all, like the study shows that the resistant capacity of adobe building in Nepal to seismic movement is good, providing the building has an adapted morphology. The valley. Um, so the buildings that I showed you before of the village setting, these are the buildings that's located on the outskirts of the Kathmandu Valley. That's just below the mountains. These are called the Khat. These houses are very like scattered and remote, but we also have a very prominent historic town with florist culture and civilization called Newar architecture. Um, the Kathmandu has been the center of Nepal's art and history and culture and economy for centuries. For example, like because of the flourish of the brick civilization uh, and the mixture of the culture of the people, we have 7 different UNESCO World Heritage Sites within the 20-kilometer radius. This is like the principal building materials. Um, the principal building materials is wood and brick, and are used to making building materials using technological process. Uh, there's a strong link between soil and structural element of the building. The building use wood and flexible clay mortar for the elasticity, and it was important to use it because it was very prone to earthquake, as mentioned before, and the mortar allows it to move, like the building to move and allows it to flex. So just a question of like we saw two very contrasting kind of architecture within a very small region of a valley. So like even the building material is the same, like a brick or the clay and wood, we have a very contrasting different. So like the expression of architecture, even with this like same material, is very different. So it's general. It's because of the testament to the people and community who have integrated this their culture and the tradition into the building practice. But like if we that's on the glimpse, but if we go deeper into it, we can find many social cultural factors that comes into play when defining the architectural language. This includes the relation of house and settlement, the site and its choice, and social and cultural forces and forms. Uh, this is just to show how the settlements are built in the Newari town. Since the Kathmandu has a very fertile soil, the people they want the inhabitants they you wanted to use as much as of the land for the agriculture rather than the building, so they made a very fortified community with very small frontage of the building attached to each other. All the public space and amenities were constructed inside this. So that's the major distinguishing factor between the general houses that you find throughout the country and the Newari settlement. It's the compact dwelling, shared walls, centralized planning, uh, and the display of the rich culture and tradition. And also, like going by their social context, like they are the traders and craftsmen. Like Newari people, they're generally the traders and craftsmen, which rich culture influence. So they have a lot of mm, so it's a boiling point for uh, grow of a culture, so that's where there's like flourish in the art and architecture, like details in the wood carvings, metals and alloys, and also in the pottery making. Also, like they have lots of festivals and jatras, which is evident in shaping the settlements. You can see we have a hierarchical public space. All these small courtyards are small or bigger courtyards. These are for the residential, like the purpose, and also for the communal events and functions. Uh, uh, yeah, and like also like the urban morphology of newer settlements is very interesting because they just don't cater to the individual building units, but equal importance is given to the public amenities and space. So this is a public space complex that I studied when I was in my conservation study class. What we have is here is basically, like you can see just from the visual of this, is we have multiple buildings like the rest house, the water spouts, and the temples and the buildings. They all stay in harmony with each other. The urban design of the towns and their like narrow streets and open space, the placement of the house and monuments tells a remarkable understanding of visual and functional principles. And also like with the universal use of fair-faced brick with the intense color, it unifies and gives character to the urban space of nearby towns. So in contrast, in the typical village cluster that's around the outskirts of the Kathmandu Valley, we have this is the general representation. Like here, we don't see a fortified community with a very closed and dense cluster. Um, this is because like in the lands are very are on a because the settlements are on the contour line because they are on the edges of the valley. So you have a hill area, starting of hill area. So the lands are contoured, so they don't have enough space to make a building that's faced towards each other and with the big courtyards and public amenities. Also, like most of the people working here are the farmers, so they prioritize the farming with the terrace farming, as you can see in the picture here. Also, buildings are and the basically the geography gives the pattern to the settlement. So each buildings are oriented towards the sun, facing towards the sun on the contour land, and structures are standalone, reflecting basic technological requirement, and it's mostly based on necessity and practicality rather than and rather it's in contrast with the Nevaris buildings, which they were more uh, evident of the handiwork, the woodwork, like that reflects their skills and techniques. Also, like the fewer celebration compared to nearby settlement, like even the cultural practice and festivals are simpler and more rooted in the agricultural cycle. So even if they have one, they have it, the whole village gather on one space or a public space that's made in on the uphill or on the down uphill part of the settlement, and they celebrate there. And Sautara is a very significant kind of rest house that's made under a natural tree by just making a plinth around it. So they use a very simple form of this like dynamic of public space between them and their buildings, and they tend to utilize like nature more rather than like with the newer settlement. Like they were very centralized and connected to each other with their own civilizations and plannings. Constancy and change. Like what I'm trying to say in this one is like I'm just trying to show the contrast of why even though the materials used are same, the buildings look contrastingly different within the same valley. So like I just mentioned about the relation between the neighborhood and the building and the site and its context, and we also have uh, this technological aspects that the people use. Like for example, the problem is same for all the buildings. So we have a monsoon, harsh winter, and a heavy monsoon. So the building basically it's an adobe brick wall. So you need a protection against the moisture. So what Newar people they do is they have this they use this technique called it's not a technique, just like a very ingenious way of cladding a building with a specialized brick called dachiapa. You can see in the section here. So if this is a section of a wall, this is the inside space and this is the outside. So inside, like you have a normal brick masonry with normal brick, adobe brick, like that's binded together by the mud mortar. But on the outside brick, we see that the brick are a little bit of a trapezoid in shape. The reason they do this is because, like on the front, like the mortar is not visible from the front. It just the triangular part remaining will hold the mortar, and the brick stays intact. The reason for doing this is like if the mortar is not visible, the water will cannot penetrate through this mortar from the facade, the clad, and this brick is is made a very like it's ensure that it's a very good resistance against water. They are they are coated with like the resins and clay, red clay, or the oils from the and the resins from the vegetable to make it water transparent as well. So and also like for some they also use a particular treatment like visible like prior to firing, so it's a little bit more durable than the normal bricks. Similarly, if we look at sorry, the normal village cluster, how they make their building water resistance is like they have this technique called it's called cooking the loon. So it's like we call it cooking, but it's not actually cooking. It's it's the fermentation. What they do is like they basically soak the rice husk and straw bales with cow dongs and water for multiple days, and you keep on mixing the mixture. Like this mix will because of the cow dung, like this mix will ferment after a few days, and like you again um, keep on like fermenting it a lot until it acts as like a polymer. So after that, like you splash the slurry on the wall. This mixture like it ferments and then forms a polymer which acts as an insulation on the building layer. After mixing it like properly, and then you splash the slurry on the wall, and after it dried up, you plaster it again with the the color of like any texture you want to give it, the red clay or the white clay. Some people even use lime uh, as a finishing material to give this extra layer of the moisture, like to avoid the moisture penetration. And also like the advantage of using a lime is it creates micro cracks, and uh, and even when the moistures are present, these lime like these free lime, like they active to and like the presence of moisture makes this free lime active to precipitate and heals these micro cracks. And also, yeah, besides the quarrying of the clay and variation of colors and mixing, the the language also differs from the various ethnic group of people living on the regions. Like each ethnic group of people have their own unique identity uh, on how they use the colors and the textures to the buildings, even though the general building material is the same. Uh, Now, like we are moving away from Kathmandu Valley, and let's look at a bigger picture of how the Nepal is formed geographically and ecologically. Nepal is called roof of the world, and since I mentioned before, there's a tectonic plate that's moving inside the country that's helping in creating the mountains. But like the interesting feature of Nepal is also like within the span of 200 kilometers from north to south, Nepal have an extreme bioregions from the very hot tropical, so like very from the low plains to the high mountains. So and this gives, and also like the various climatic zones. So this variation in such a short spans also means that like we have a various type of building typology, and because generally like a very general norm for a building, a vernacular building uh, is addresses the need of the climate and the availability of the material on that place, which is a very general criteria for a vernacular. But so like since we have such a variation in such a short area, we have a lot of vernacular building typologies and identities, and also um, I think we have around like 142 ethnic group of people. So each group of people, they bring their own culture and religious identities to their structures. So we have a lot of varieties of uh, we have a vernacular oasis. We can say that. And this is just a table like to show in the categorically, even if we have like multiple regions, like Nepal is basically divided into three different regions, like hilly, Tarai, like the plains in the Tarai, the midland in the hilly, and the higher Himalayas. And each area, they have their own kind of soil. So in Tarai, we have a very rich, fertile alluvial soil, because it comes with all the rivers flow down from the Tarai, and it brings all the good soil to this region. And hilly region is mostly gravelly and sandy soil. Like this is also reason like you find most of the stones uh, as well. And in the Himalayan region is uh, we have various kind of soil here as well. Like some have fertile soil, some area they do not. It also we cannot just generalize just from this one, because each area has their own unique qualities. And again, I'm just giving a brief of what's how much of a vernacular material is important in our country. So from this this was taken taken back. We don't have updated one, but we can see that most of the country, the most part of the country, like in this one you see mud bonded buildings, there's like 75% or more on the western part. So like there's very few buildings that don't use natural materials for the construction. So like this is mud or brick, or yeah, you just saying measure for the people, uh, since most of the parts of the country are in a remote setting, and they do not have the availability of the modern construction material. There are people who still prefer the traditional material, like because we have that in abundant, and we have a very unique architectural forms and identity in each region. So I'm just going very briefly of some of these areas. I'm not going to all of them because there's a lot to cover. I'm just giving an example of some of the places that I have been to, so it's easy for you to get the insights on what we're looking at. So this is a cool temperate climate. It also lies on the hilly region, like the same altitude as the that lies in the Kathmandu Valley, but this is a little bit higher. It's more of a cool temperament. So basically, it's so naturally, like, you need a lot of sunlight. So buildings are always faced towards the south. Even like the long facade is faced toward the south, and again, like, these buildings are very similar. Typology is very similar in construction to the previous building that I showed in hilly regions, with the thermal mass. Instead of brick, they use stone here, but like, again, it's plastered with mud to gain that thermal mass and the heat. Yeah, and like in this region, there's mostly limestone, slate, sandstone, mud, like the different variety of like the stones are available. So uh, the walls are basically made of stone, like you can see in the picture here, and it's plastered by a white clay called Kamerumato. And on the ground floor, you can see it's like it's plastered on with the red clay. I'm sure it's mixed with the cow dung, because mostly the people, they use cow dung on the plinth area, like they mix it with the red clay and on the plinth area, because it not just acts as a very it gives a very beautiful color and texture to the floor please, because it makes the floor surface smooth, but it also it gives an antibacterial property. So lots of people, they use it for the cleanliness. And you can see, like, we have the exposed brick wall over here. Like, generally, like, if the bricks are exposed, like, these kind of houses are generally used for the shades and cattles, like, because it will be like very cold to live in houses like this. And also, like, if you look at the section over here, uh, just explains what I already told you about. Like, we have a stone footing, and then we have a stone wall on top, like, and then wooden floor in between, and again the wooden post is holding the truss and overhang that covers the wall with the moisture. And we have and they have this little uh, balcony in front of them, is called PD, where, like, people, they use this to do their household activities. Like, there's so many Goran people who make bamboo mats and baskets. They um, yeah, okay. And also, like, the thing to notice, like, if you go higher up in the region, the wall height is less to trap the heat, uh, uh, so it's and walls are always thicker. Yeah. This is some of the pictures of one of a village in Parbat region. It's a mountainous area. So you can see, yeah, the construction system is same, like I mentioned before. Like, we use timber and post to take this like, to support on this masonry the wall system. And uh, while clay were used, like the brick, while the burnt clay were used as roof tiles in Kathmandu, here we can find slates, because that's found in abundant over here. We don't find it on this area. And, like, even if the clay is scarce, they use it to bind the stone masonry, because the mud mortar is very flexible, and again, we need the flexible binder for the building to be resilient, like, for it to allow it to flex. Uh, and again, like, there's a lot of modifying factors that determine the vernacular of a building. So, like, again, like, this is on the same region of the mountains. Like, it's also a Gurung village, but you see the buildings are circular in shape. So, just like, uh, this is a very unique to this community. And this is an example of, like, materials in themselves, they do not determine the form. It's more of the tradition and culture of the place. Like, we do not see the roundhouse in any other culture. It's only in the Gurung. And why they do this was, like, still not very, we don't have a very concrete research on that. But based on the studies, like, what we can say is, like, since oval, like, the round is the most like, the circular shape of the house is the most stable during the movement, like, lateral movement of the earth. So maybe people opted for that. uh, uh, and also, um, there's also this saying, like some people they say like generally the houses in these regions are made of stone on a rectangular, and the building shape is a rectangular form, and the cornerstone that stays on this rectangular building of the stone is very tricky. So there's a saying like some people they did not want to use extra skill on making this corner bond, so they made a building circular, so it's more easy to do. And also um, and also it looks like beautiful on the setting. Next, I'm going on the upper Himalaya Valley. So this is another different region in the mountainous region of Nepal. It lies behind the mountains, so it's a very dry and airy due to its position. And it this area it has abundant resource of stones, rocks, and mud. And due to availability of a very um, like very less fertile land and very harsh climatic condition, the timber and other organic material for the building are rather scarce. So they basically use what's available for them to build their community. So I'm just trying to show you how the geological form of this area looks like. You can see it's basically just the conglomerate of the earth. Uh, so these are the material that's used for building. So Upper Mustang. So this is a so Upper Mustang is basically is a walled city that's built in 15th century, and people have lived here for centuries, adapting these harsh climates. That's why the settlements are generally very compact. It's also a gated city, and with very small alleys and a big courtyard in between to cater for their social and cultural needs. And the essence of dwelling. Before I go into essence of dwelling, I just want to show this one. Like uh, that there are so if you go in this region you can find a very high cliffs of Mustang that's dotted with man-made caves, like that's like 4 or 5 story high. So if you see look into the detail into one of the like the walls that's made inside the cave, we can see a very good composition of earth, the clay, and the rubbles to make this a compact structure. So it looks like the people of that area took this natural form as an example to build their house in the community, because most of the buildings in the Upper Mustang area are either rammed earth building that requires like that's made with clay and silt and some little sand, little like small pebbles and rocks, and or like they just basically make adobe brick out of it and just lay it on like top of each other. So now we're getting into the settlement. The walls are generally again like 40 to 400 to 500 centimeter high, like thickness, and it's a very low height ceiling, the base contains like large and uncut mortar stone. Sometimes the plinth goes up to like 1 story, like in this you see like we have very high plinth, and then they start building for the building with the earth blocks, uh, like the like I mentioned, like the walls are mostly again acts as a thermal mass. In this section, you can see we have a thermal like the mud wall, and the floor is again mud that's supported on like the wooden beams and posts. We have small courtyards in between, like that goes into the space. Like all these is because like they don't want the building to open to the outside. That gives a very harsh wind. And also since there's like no rain over here, they generally have a flat roof that's also like made of mud, and they stack some this sun-dried the they cover like joist with wood and large number of like wheat stalks, like whatever is available, and twigs, and then like they plaster it with the clay again. And the foundation and plinth are always of stone rubble. The earth construction preferred. So this has an earth question, but like even in Mustang, if you go to the lower parts of Mustang, you see the building that's made of the rubbles, only like stone rubbles. But that's because the good quality of clay is not available in the rural region. It's only in the upper Mustang area. So we have a very good clay that's suitable for the earth building. This is a very testament to the rammed earth structure that we build now. Uh, uh, that has taken example from this historic construction that used to be done ages back. Here you can see like this mud flooring on the top as well, like to keep the area warm above your head as well. And yeah, like and again, like after they make a wall with the adobe brick or ramming, like when they if they make it with the adobe brick, they plaster it with white clay again, like because it's to give it a contrast to the natural landscape and form. And so yeah, even when the clay is like scars in the lower regions, so they use it to bind the rubbles, which give its structure integrity. And some people, like we can see, like they use earth even as a like storage in the harsh climates, like a natural store underground. So after the cold and harsh alpine climate, where we come to this subtropical climate of Taro House. Uh, uh, Tharu is a very like, the indigenous community living in the Tarai belt of Nepal. Tarai's region is mainly characterized by very finer sediment of the soil. It's usually found in lowland river basins, and most of the house they build have this material uh, used to its fullest. So most of the building they make is like so structurally how the buildings are made is like we can see it's not very visible, but uh, the loads of building is taken by the wooden post. They make a transparent like structure system first with just timbers, and they hang the roof, and after this only they clad a wall around it with like they make a clad a wall around it, so that the wall and the building structure systems like the posts are independent. So when the lateral forces like external forces are there, like the building it moves separately. So this is one way of construction in this area. uh, the houses are general because like it's a very hot, so orientation is always east west, like it's never faced south, and it's built on clusters around the courtyard with one side open, and very open and airy planning with lots of vegetations around it, and also balcony because most of the people they prefer sleeping in veranda outside during summer. And like if the family are extended, like they built another one like just next to it, and the cluster keeps growing. Openings are very few in number except for low window below the roof, so that's aids in the ventilation. And foundation is just a thick layer of compressed mud. um, yeah, wooden logs are used as vertical and horizontal post, and for wall they for wall they have this system called wattle and daub, where it's like basically they weave the bamboo together and they plaster it with the earth that's available. This one is the reconstruction of the existing building. So they take out the building, the plaster material previously used, and then they grind it to the finer particle bits and particles, and they mix it with water again and then replaster it again. Like some of the people they use cow dungs as well. The cow dungs also again here provides a very good thermal barrier inside the house, but not all people prefer cow dungs. Like the ones who don't, they just use clay, like to plaster the walls. Um, yeah, while plastering, generally clays are mixed with water, like with the rice husk in the first layer, and like when they want a cleaner finish, they just use the clay on top of it again. Uh, this was yeah, you can see like three women, like they're all plastering already plastered house, like this is a very general norm you can see in Tarai, because the women's are the ones who take charge of building their house. They during the like festivals or new rituals or any ceremony going in the house, they uh, they paint and plaster their house with the clay. Like that's the way of the cleaning and making the house look new again. They work with clothes or long rags or just with the hands, and they plaster it all around, and not just like walls, but like even if you look inside, like you see like even the kitchen racks, the stoves, and this niches in the room to add as a storage, and also these are all made from clay actually. The women's of these are done basically all by the women's, and also like this is called tahiri. It's a very special kind of storage system that helps them to store rice for many years. Like it's made only of earth, like stacking together, and some of the Tharu people, they also do wall paintings. Like there's also this another group called Mithila uh, in the eastern lower belt of the country. Like they are very known for their very beautiful paintings. Like again, like women of the house does the painting. They use locally available materials into different colors and they paint it. And this is again used as a rituals. Like so, they don't believe it to be temp permanent. They built it, and after a few years, after it erodes and erodes, like they have when they have a bigger ceremony or festivals or rituals, they repaint it like with the different patterns. They don't take it as a core but as a rituals basically. Again, a very beautiful testament to the people, like how buildings are shaped by the people and their culture and their ideology. And for the roofing, they generally use a very special kind of tile called kapda. This is just a semicircular tile that's just laid by stacking on top of each other. So some like on the top on top and the bottom part, like we use clay to secure it in place, but remaining is just like stacking. It gives a very beautiful texture in the Tarai belt. Okay, so coming back to the present, like after going throughout the country and learning about these indigenous building practices, like according to the reason, the community, and the place. But if we go at the same place, we the trend we can see now is like a globalizing building form. So like basically we have a very similar concrete frame and this facade in all the regions of the countries. This has give arise the question of like where are we heading, because we are losing our regional identity in this process of globalization. Like again, like we see at the Kathmandu, which is very open, which was known as city of dreams with and city of gods, with its beautiful palaces, courtyards, and historic architectures and forms. Now it's known mostly for its overcrowded settlements, just a basic like, concrete jungle. So where so this is why like because this is why I became a part of Abari, because I have a very high regards for vernacular architecture, its material and its practice, and that's basically what we do. We use after roaming all around this place, like we use these materials and bring them on our construction techniques, but with a refined um, technology. Uh, yeah. So these are some of the projects that I worked with Abari. So this is one of the first building that I did with rammed earth. So with it is similar to the ones that we saw in Mustang. We have a very proportional amount of clay, sand, and some natural binding agents like aggregates. We compact it and make a monolithic structure that's held together by here, like we've used reinforcement, like in previous ramrod building, like we do not seem to find reinforcement, like, but in some buildings they have horizontal, in horizontal reinforcement it's been found that they use some like natural thorns to bind the two layers that's sitting on top of each other. But now we it's not but we now use a polypropylene mesh to help the layers of the ramming, so it moves uh, like together. You can see here in the, here in the section here. And yeah, we also use like thermal mass, giving it a very proper thermal mass. Yeah, this is a school that we did in one of very hot climate in Turkey. The building temperature is very comfortable, like inside, just because of the use of earth. And this is a compressed stabilized earth brick. This is also we use in one of the project, like generally when the soil conditions are not very good, we tend to make bricks out of it. So we, because we add a little bit of stabilizer in this way, allow, because this gives us a space to allow add some fertilizer stabilizer. And after using, it's the same brick, we painted it with the earth, like with the desirable color, like for to paint it, like we mix it with wheat flour and sugar, so that it does not stick to the hand after it's painted. And like each different color is because we got the mud from very like different part of the country. And we also experiment, like do this waterline daub technique again, like that's done in the Tharu community with the bamboo. We prepare a bamboo mesh, and on top of that we plaster it with earth and sand here. And after that we again like we paint it with the clay of the desired colors. And again, like we're making a monastery here of with bamboo and rammed earth again. It's basically like we're building like a mountain, like on a mountain. Yeah. So I'm at the end of my presentation. Like what I want to say is, like, Earth is a very versatile housing solution, limiting all the culture or, like, quantitative needs due to its adaptability and availability, especially in a country like Nepal. We have earth in abundance, and in vulnerable region like urban building is the most sustainable, fostering local development and reducing reliance on the imports. Like even with our own experiment, we have noticed, like, is that when we're working, like almost like more than 75% of the budget it stays locally. Mm, Not, yeah. So, so it gives more power to the local technology and craft to enhance, rather than just having the same building structure in all part of the country. Like that's not even thermally comfortable, visually aesthetic, or like just doesn't go with the harsh environmental uh, crisis that we have over here. Uh, and amid globalization, it's very important that we promote this local architecture and mm, yeah. So yeah, with the fresh attention to the environment, we can return to Earth as new technology of architecture in the new century. So this is all I have to say for now. I hope you like my presentation, and if you have anything to ask me, you can contact me at Gmail. Thank you.